Welcome to this week's professional development, Making Your Online Course Affordable, brought to you by the Center for Online and Continuing Education. I am Abigail Perkins, a learning strategist at the center and your guide through this session. If you want to elevate inclusivity in your course through implementation of affordable and zero-cost instructional materials, you are in the right spot at the right time. Our goal in this PD is to provide you with the resources and skill set to define open educational resources. We call them OERs for short. Explore strategies for implementing OERs. And discover avenues to participate in the affordability movement. There are opportunities for faculty-to-faculty networking and engagement, and we will explore some of those routes. Our map to achieve these objectives is the presentation outline. Let's talk context. Why does this matter? Why affordable instructional materials are very important, especially right now during these times. What is OER? What is an open educational resource? Still interested? I bet you are. I will demonstrate a streamlined approach to finding Canvas-ready OERs. My fellow agents of change who are with me in this professional development, I will show you an inclusive route to participate in the affordability movement through the Florida statewide initiative called Affordability Counts. Finally, I will share my top strategies for implementing OERs. The context. Why does this matter? In the last 30 years, the price of college instructional materials has outpaced the average increase for goods and services by more than 3 times. That's 3 times the rate of inflation. Textbooks cost has increased more than 3 times the inflation rate. What does this mean in another sense? With about 1,000% rise in textbook costs over the short run of the past several years, short run in an economic context, so about 5 years. In the short run, over 40% of students skip meals to afford textbooks. That is a labor of Bureau statistic from Creative Commons, the link to which is in the presentation, which you will receive after this presentation. So that is a fairly sobering statistic that 40% of students skip food for a textbook. We have, are, and will be doing something about that. Affordability matters on a fundamentally human level. Low and zero cost materials empower students by promoting access while reducing barriers. So these are two different concepts, and affordability targets both of those critical factors to student success at the same time, promoting access and reducing barriers. Affordability fosters inclusivity by laying an equitable foundation. This is by providing students with access to materials the first day that the course begins, when students need the materials. It is zero cost. It's right there in Canvas. Also, it is an avenue for collaborative faculty-to-faculty engagement. There is a course sharing repository we will explore that allows you networking capabilities with the other faculty at other state universities here in Florida. You matter, we need you, and academia needs you, and your students need you. So we have some context as to why affordability is so important. Now let's look at what an OER is and how we can get to that affordability component. So OERs, open educational resource. OERs are different from traditionally published works due to licenses allowing for adaptations, meaning an OER is a work that has an open license to it. You can use it without a subscription. You can use it without a membership. In fact, you can reuse, remix, revise, retain, redistribute, however you wish. It's an open license, and if you are an adapter or an original author, you can decide what license you wish to choose to implement for your OER. Open educational resources typically have a Creative Commons license, and that again is an open license that allows you to do different things and allows you to use the material of others depending on open stipulations. So for example, you can share but not necessarily profit off sharing. And for those of you who may be interested in some of those specifics of the licensing, I can talk about that later at the end of this session. What is an OER specifically as far as its structure? An OER has a lot of different things. It is not just a textbook that is in an electronic form. It is an e-text. It can be a lab manual. It can be a simulation. It can be a virtual reality exploration. It can be an interactive experience, an instructional video, a graphic, a figure. Completely varies in all forms. So OERs are not limited to one particular kind of work. They are zero cost, and the FAU libraries have a phenomenal LibGuides on open educational resources and overview. That's the link which you will be receiving, again, in an email after this presentation. The library is just wonderful, and our librarians are phenomenal. And this is a really wonderful resource here in this LibGuides for open educational resources that we have here at FAU. And before moving on, I just want to add one more comment to what Creative Commons is. Creative Commons is a global organization behind the open licensing of an OER. It is not a repository. It does not take your simulation that you may want to have as an OER. It does not take your e-text and hold on to that. It provides you guidelines into communicating with others the permissions of use for that material. And likewise, when you are interested in using an OER for your course, you can look at that Creative Commons license and be able to identify how you are allowed and permitted to use it for your course. And Creative Commons helps navigate us through those waters. Oh, and also, an OER can be a question bank too. The sky's the limit. How to find OERs. This is one example that we are going to go through, and this focuses on adoption. So adoption is when you find, let's say, an e-text, and you want to just take that piece of work as is and put it in your Canvas course. You don't want to make any changes to it. It aligns with your course very well. That's your book that you want to use. That's called adopting, where you take it and you use it as is. If you adapt, you make changes, alter, remix. That's a little different. We can talk more about that later. But for right now, I'm showing an easy avenue to put an OER in your Canvas course through adopting it. So step one, you go into Canvas and you go to resources at the bottom of the menu on the left, and it has a folder icon. So if you were to log into Canvas, go to that left pane, you'll see a folder icon with the word resources. You click on that, and this menu pops up that you are seeing on the screen. Click on Follett Discover, which is where the red arrow is. Then you enter the ISBN if you happen to know that. If you don't know the ISBN, you can type the topic, the book title, or another keyword into the search bar by that red arrow and select go. Step 3, select the OER tab and locate the material. The OER tab is indicated by the red arrow in the middle of the screen. Use the filter button, which is to the right of the screen. Use the filter button on the right to locate the materials. The drop-down menu that you see on the screen will highlight the OERs, and then you click search. Step 4, click view details on the OER of interest. So when you put in your search and you filter it in accordance to whatever your filter items are, your results will come up on the screen and you can explore your different OERs that you may be interested. View the details. So here we have OpenStack's concepts of biology, and that red area shows you where the button is to explore more details to see if this is the text that you would like to adopt. On a side note, I highly recommend OpenStax. It's peer reviewed. A lot of good material in OpenStax. Step 5, the last step. On the right, use the drop-down menu to select the course for which you want to adopt the OER. Being in Canvas with your course already in there, you will then be able to link the OER that you just found to your course. These 5 steps that I just went through are in a step-by-step 2.5-page guide. That's a PDF. We will send that to you at the conclusion of this presentation. So you can go in on your own and look at the screenshots and the steps as you explore OERs in Canvas through Follett Discover. Follett Discover in Canvas is not the only way to find OERs. There are also a lot of repositories. There's an absolute wealth of repositories. My go-tos that I really love that are quite expansive and yield some really good results are Merlot, OER Commons, OpenStax, and Wikimedia Commons for images. Merlot is one of the biggest OER repositories globally. So they have, they're really have the most information available. OER Commons, wonderful. I have to warn you, if you start exploring OER Commons, 3 hours might go by and you thought it was 5 minutes. It's really fun and a lot of very good, useful material in all of these OERs. OpenStax is the example that we showed in the 5-step adoption guide. OpenStax has physics, anatomy and physiology, chemistry, biology, astronomy, and they are renowned, peer-reviewed. Again, I highly recommend OpenStax. And Wikimedia Commons, why do I have that one in there? A lot of images are OER, and there are also a lot of images that are copyrighted that don't have permission to reuse. So oftentimes we want a nice diagram or a graph, an image of some sort, not necessarily an entire textbook or an entire question bank. Maybe we just want a really good image. And I would recommend Wikimedia Commons to explore some of those images. A lot of the images in Wikimedia Commons have already been sorted out so they all have open licensing, it is still good form to confirm on your own every piece of OER that you would like to include in your course, just to make sure all those T's are crossed. But these four that I have on the slide here really are staples for OER and have a pretty good track record. And if we have any remaining time at the end of this session, I can go through and do a web walk in one of these. If we do not have time, these are links. And when you receive this presentation in the follow-up email, you can go in and explore on your own. Be warned, though, it can be very fun and quite the rabbit hole. A few hours can pass before you know it. All right. How do we participate in the movement? We have an OER. It's adopted in our Canvas course. Zero cost. Our students are using it, and they don't have to make the choice, can I afford this item, my car payment, or food? You're giving them a low cost or zero cost instructional material that's high quality, and it's easily accessible right there in Canvas. That's fantastic. That's great for student success, great for access. You as a faculty member can elevate this participatory engagement by becoming involved in a statewide initiative, as one example, called Affordability Counts. You can also find OER courses in Affordability Counts. That's part of the networking and the communication. So it is a Florida statewide initiative. It's a Florida statewide course sharing repository. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is an example of one FAU course that is on the Affordability Counts course share. All of the 12 SUS institutions are on Affordability Counts. And this one is a math course, Methods of Calculus. And we see that when it's offered, it's online, and the one instructional material that is associated with this course we see down below is a textbook, Methods of Calculus, and that link will take you to that course, which happens to be on the Orange Grove. The Orange Grove is a Florida textbook OER repository. Affordability Counts is captures the bigger picture in that it is a course sharing repository. And some courses that you will see on Affordability Counts have instructional videos, simulations. So instead of just having one item that you see on the screen here we see the textbook. A lot of courses you'll see 5. There's simulations, there's question banks, there's a whole cornucopia. And some courses you won't see any at all. It's up to the instructional autonomy of that faculty member. Okay, so how do you go about submitting a course? Let's say you have been on Canvas, you searched through the OERs from the resources in Follett Discover on Canvas, and you found the perfect OER that you would like to adopt. You imported it into your course, and other faculty and other students will be able to benefit from this. So we encourage you to participate in Affordability Counts and share your course. So someone in another part of the state can see what you've done for your specific domain. And maybe there's someone out there who's really interested in making their course affordable, and they just haven't been able to figure that out yet. And vice versa. This is a place where you can go to explore also. So share your OER adoption or adaptation if you did choose to modify an OER at all. So share your OER adoption or adaptation with other faculty across the state on the Affordability counts course submission. So what you do is you would hit that submit course button with the red arrow once you go to affordabilitycounts.org. And when you hit that arrow, what you see next is a screenshot of what the application looks like. It's not extensive. It is it asks the basics. What's your institution? What's the course ID? And it also asks you to confirm the price and that there is permission to use the material. So the criteria for affordability counts is the cost to the student must be under $20 per credit hour. A lot of the courses that you will find on affordability counts are zero cost, no cost at all to the students. Every once in a while, there is there are case studies that might have a few pennies or $10 here, $10 there. So every once in a while there are courses that really just do require some element of cost. As long as that cost is under $20 per credit hour, you can put it on affordability counts. And to do that, you go to the course share page that I showed on the previous slide. You fill out this form, press submit, and it will go to a committee that verifies the content. And it's as simple as that. You will receive a response from Affordability Counts. And if selected, you will be able to put a badge on your syllabus to indicate that this is a affordable course, and that's also something to include on your Vita. It's definitely bragging rights for sure. Okay, now we have some time left to go over some of my top um, tips and strategies for implementing OER. And what OER does is it enriches the instructional material when it's no or low cost for sure, but also it allows for the option to adapt. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. We talked about adopting through Follett Discover in Canvas, where you can find a OER that is available in Canvas, easily put it into your Canvas course. Let's say that you want to take it a step further and you find an OER and it just doesn't quite fit to your course. It's almost there, but maybe your course is a graduate level and you found an OER that's more tailored to an undergraduate level. If your OER that you found has a license that grants you the permission to redistribute, you can certainly modify that. So OERs, again, they have those open licenses, and you can revise, you can remix, you can redistribute, and depending on the license of the source from which you are adapting, you can do a variety of things. So I do recommend that whenever you find a source, if you're interested in adapting that, look at that license that is on your source and just make sure that you are familiar with what it's saying and that you are following those stipulations. So for example, OpenStax, it has a CC BY license. All that means is CC, Creative Commons, BY means provide attribution. So if you want to take material from OpenStax and tweak it a little bit so it is more aligned with, say, a higher upper level graduate course, then you make sure that you follow the stipulations of attribution. If you were to look at another OER, for example, that might have a license with CC by SA, then what you do is you just read through that small fine print that says the SA means share alike. So if you were to republish your adaptation, you would want to make sure you follow the license permissions of your main source from which you are adapting. And in a case where your main source has a CC by SA license, then you would want to make sure that you share alike, that's where the SA comes in, and you republish under that same license. So your adaptation would then have a CC by SA license as well. Now, how does all of that happen? Happens through the Creative Commons website, creativecommons.org, and they give you the link to the license that you want, and you just pop that link into your material. And so that's one of my main tips, is to ensure that you understand the license of the source from which you are adapting. And if there are any questions, the Creative Commons website is phenomenal at describing what these licenses mean in 2, 3 sentences. And then also you can always reach out to the original author. Oftentimes original authors or adaptation authors are quite happy to correspond with those who are interested in their materials. So another a strategy at utilizing OERs is to make the course current with current instructional materials. There are several courses, I'm sure many of you who are attending have a course where the material in this one area, or maybe throughout the entire course, really changes as uh, technology evolves, or as there is a great economic shift. A lot of our content changes. For example, a course on green energy is going to change drastically from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, because that field has technology that is rapidly advancing. And one way to keep up with that and stay current and provide our students with the most excellent instructional materials we can is to utilize OERs through adaptation. Or if you find an up-to-date OER that does not require adaptation, you can adopt it as is. Either way, you do have that flexibility utilizing OERs to stay current, which is pretty important in higher education right now. An adaptation affords the flexibility to modify the content to better align with the course. So this is not only applicable to undergraduate and graduate levels. So let's say you find a fantastic simulation, but it's a little too simple, and you want to make it more for graduate students. You have the option to adapt it and modify it. The same goes for quiz banks. Let's say you find a really nice quiz bank, but it's a little too complex. You want to make it a little bit simpler. Then you can go in and adapt it to better align with the course objectives and the specific module learning objectives for your course and for that specific module. And on that note of modules, you can find OERs for just one part of your course. For example, you could find a question bank or a simulation or a virtual reality exploration for just one module of the course, or one part of one module of the course. You can do whatever you wish. This does not have to be one or the other. It does not have to be binary. It's a spectrum. You can utilize OERs however you choose. They can be through a cumulative e-text for the duration of the entire course. Chapter 1 goes with Module 1, Chapter 2 goes with Module 2, or you can just take this one, Google expedition or VR exploration for this one particular component that you just want a little something extra, and put that into your Canvas course. So one tip here is in adapting, pardon me, one of my big tips, if I could pick one of my favorite tips for adaptation, and that is to document licenses of the OERs you would be using. So this is important. Let's say that you are interested in creating your own e-text, and you have one source over here you really like, and you have one source over here you really like, and you want to combine them. You want to make sure that you review the license on both of your OERs to make sure that those two licenses go together. For example, if one license says no commercial use, but another license says commercial use, and you on your own want to make it commercial for whatever reason, maybe a very low cost, then you would have to ensure that all of the OERs you are merging together have licenses that also cohere. And for a good understanding of that, I have a link in the presentation, which you'll receive after this in an email, that has a chart that helps you navigate that territory. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply than I already have into OER licensing, because there are about 6, and there's a lot of details that we don't really need to get into, but it is important to know that once you do start diving into the world of adaptation, that it's wise to make sure that you have at least looked at the license that should be on either the bottom of every web page, or if you're in an e-text, it should be somewhere at the very beginning. You want to make sure that you're pretty familiar with the license so you have an understanding of what you're allowed to do. I'd like to zoom out on the impact that affordability can have on your students, on you, on the university, on the state, and humanity, really, as a whole. Margaret Mead is an American cultural anthropologist whom I admire. And she has been quoted to say, "I must admit that I personally measure success in terms of the contributions an individual makes to her or his fellow human beings." This is an opportunity for you to make a huge contribution. And it won't just be to one student. By making instructional materials affordable, all your students in your course will be able to have that benefit. And this helps, again, to establish more of an equitable foundation. So all students have the option, have the choice to have the instructional material on the first day of the course. It promotes access, it promotes inclusion, and we have gone through this presentation to help provide a skill set and some resources to empower you in navigating those waters to help your students, and also empower you as faculty to participate as an autonomous faculty member in the state, to network with other faculty members.
I had a question, Dr. Abigail.
Yes, ma'am.
So, for OERs, are a lot of them peer reviewed?
The majority are not peer reviewed, but many of them are. The world of OER is very open and diverse, and it does require some research on the part of the person who's interested in adopting or adapting. So you want to make sure, again, you look at that license, which is like a symbol, and it should link you to the Creative Commons website to show you in 2 or 3 sentences what that license means. And a lot of the times um, it really depends. OER is very diverse. OpenStax, for example, is peer reviewed, and on their introductory pages for each of their online textbooks, it says that these are peer reviewed. There are other sources that are peer reviewed. Most are not, but you will find them. You will definitely find them in Merlot, OER Commons, and other sources. Oftentimes, a lot of faculty write their own textbooks or their own handouts and just decide on their own volition to put them on OER Commons, to put them on Merlot, without any help from a library or from their Center for Online and Continuing Education. And so it's ranging from individual faculty members on their own to these big groups of peer-reviewed cohorts such as OpenStax. So that's a very great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abigail.
Oh, thank you. So we have 4 minutes remaining. I'd like to take the opportunity to share next week's professional development, July 6th, 12:15, WebEx. The upcoming PD is on virtual communities. Join us to learn and discuss how to use virtual communities to bring together students, faculty, alumni, and professionals while establishing relationships and building opportunities. A virtual community of practice, VCOP, or a virtual community of learners, VCOL, is open space to engage in dialogue with students, faculty, alumni, and professionals in the field on topics related to a subject area. So that looks like a very exciting PD next week.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It looks like Mark Rose made a comment.
I'm trying to open up my screen to see the comment. University presses have made recent scholarly books available electronically. The FAU library purchases those books and faculty adds a course outlines via Canvas. University press books are peer-reviewed. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Oh, so this is a beautiful comment. We can have instructional materials that are in Canvas, like University Press, where the library has purchased a subscription or some sort of an agreement. And there's again a spectrum there where students who have FAU authentication because they are FAU students in an FAU Canvas course, so that you can access the material there, and as the faculty member you can adopt the material through Canvas using university presses. So thank you very much for that comment. That's fantastic. And that also brings a whole new light into this picture, because there can be materials that you find from OER Commons or Merlot or OpenStax that are not through a subscription at all, but then there are also areas where you can find information from the library through an agreement that the library has made that you can also put into your Canvas course. And so we have 1 minute remaining, and in that I would just like to close out by thanking you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can do so by responding to the email that I will be sending with the presentation. And as you review the presentation or exploring any of those links, such as Creative Commons, I'm more than happy to help in talking further about some of those licensing and other ways to adopt and adapt OER. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. This has been incredible. Anytime I get information from you, I learn so much about it. Thank you. What a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, and likewise.